Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that begins with love, devotion, and promises of forever, but ends in betrayal, obsession, and cold-blooded murder. It's the story of a couple whose relationship spiraled from passion to paranoia, from affection to obsession, and ultimately from life to death. This is the case of deadly obsession, when love turned into murder. In the beginning, everything looked perfect. They met like something out of a movie, two people drawn together by chance, finding in each other what they thought was true love. Friends described them as inseparable, always together, always smiling. The world saw them as the perfect couple. We'll break ground by spring. Small cracks were starting to form. Cracks built on jealousy, control, and fear. At first, it was subtle. A few extra questions about where she went, who she talked to, why she didn't answer fast enough. It felt like love at first, a sign that he cared. But soon, it became a cage. He began tracking her movements, checking her messages, showing up unannounced. The warmth that once felt comforting now felt suffocating, and the man who once said he'd protect her was the one she started fearing most. Friends tried to intervene. They noticed the changes, the arguments, the emotional distance, the quiet tears she tried to hide. They told her to leave, to get out before things got worse, but love can be a powerful chain. She believed he could change. She believed the man she first fell for was still in there somewhere. But by then, obsession had already taken over. He began isolating her from everyone. Calls went unanswered, visits stopped, and her world slowly became just him. When people asked, she said she was fine, that things were just stressful. But those who truly knew her sensed something dark growing beneath the surface. The once vibrant, confident woman they knew was fading into someone fearful, quiet, and trapped. In his mind, love was possession. He didn't see her as a person with her own choices, but as something that belonged to him. Every time she tried to pull away, he would apologize, cry, promise it would never happen again. But each cycle grew shorter, more intense, more dangerous, and each time she lost a little more of herself. Then came the night that would change everything. It started with another argument, loud, emotional, filled with accusations. Neighbors heard shouting, things breaking, and then silence. Hours later, when police arrived after a concerned call from a friend, the quiet home told a horrifying story. She was gone lifeless, and he was nowhere to be found. The investigation revealed the chilling reality of what had been happening behind closed doors. The walls held the echoes of months of fear and control. Her phone showed messages she never sent, missed calls she never answered, and evidence of threats she never told anyone about. Investigators pieced together a pattern of obsession that grew darker with every passing day. Detectives followed his trail, tracing his movements after the murder. He had fled the city, abandoning his car near an old bridge. Inside they found a letter. It wasn't an apology. It was a justification. In his twisted words, he claimed that if he couldn't have her, no one could. It was the final confession of a man consumed by his own darkness. When authorities finally caught up with him days later, he was quiet, emotionless, almost proud. During questioning, he spoke of love as if it was something to be owned, something that gave him power. He never once said he was sorry. He spoke about betrayal, about control, about punishment, as if murder was an act of devotion. It was one of the most disturbing interviews the investigators had ever heard. In court, the evidence spoke louder than his calm words. The prosecution laid out months of manipulation and emotional abuse. Friends took the stand, recounting the red flags they'd seen. Her family shared messages that revealed how afraid she truly was, but how trapped she felt. Photos, texts, recordings, they all painted a picture of a love that turned toxic long before it turned deadly. The defense tried to argue insanity, claiming his obsession blinded him from reality. But the jury saw it differently. They saw planning, they saw control, they saw a man who knew exactly what he was doing. And when the verdict came guilty on all counts, there was no emotion in his eyes, no regret, just the empty stare of someone who had mistaken love for ownership. After the trial, her story became a symbol. It wasn't just about one couple, one crime, or one night. It became a warning of how obsession can disguise itself as love, how control can creep into relationships unnoticed until it's too late. Her name became a reminder to others that love should never hurt, never control, never demand obedience. People began sharing her story online. Advocates for domestic abuse prevention used her case to raise awareness. Families came forward, recognizing similar signs in their own loved ones. Her death, though tragic, began saving lives by exposing the silent dangers hidden in relationships that appear perfect on the outside. Years later, the house where it happened remains empty. Neighbors say they still feel a strange chill when they pass by at night. Some leave flowers near the doorstep every year on the anniversary. It's not just to mourn her. It's to remember what can happen when love is twisted into possession. Police files describe it as one of the most emotionally complex cases they ever handled. There was no motive for gain, no robbery, no revenge. Just obsession, pure, consuming, destructive obsession. The kind that starts with affection and ends in tragedy. It's the kind of story that makes you question how well we ever really know the people we love. Experts who studied the case pointed out key warning signs. Jealousy disguised as care, isolation disguised as protection, apologies without change, promises followed by punishment. They said the signs were all there, but like so many victims, she wanted to believe in the good she once saw. And that belief cost her everything. Those closest to her often say she wasn't weak. She was hopeful. She wanted to save someone she loved from their own darkness, but some people, they say, don't want to be saved. They want to control, to dominate, to make their fear someone else's burden. And when that's taken away, they lash out in the only way their obsession allows, through violence. Even in his final confession, written from his prison cell, he claimed he acted out of love. He described it as an act of eternal unity, a way to ensure they were together forever. It was a chilling reminder of how twisted obsession can become when love turns into ownership. Today, her story stands as a reminder for others to recognize the signs, to know when love becomes control, when protection becomes surveillance, when care becomes fear. It teaches that real love doesn't isolate, it doesn't harm, and it doesn't demand submission. It gives freedom, respect, and peace. The community that once mourned her now speaks her name with strength. Her friends created a foundation in her memory, supporting victims of domestic abuse and emotional manipulation. They turned pain into purpose, hoping to stop another story from ending the same way. Every year, on the day she died, people gather to light candles in her honor. They speak about the dangers of toxic love, about setting boundaries, about recognizing red flags early. Her name has become a symbol of courage, a reminder that leaving can be the bravest act of survival. The man who took her life remains behind bars, serving a life sentence with no chance of parole. Reports say he rarely speaks, spending most of his time alone. Some say he still writes letters to her, letters that will never be read, filled with words that lost their meaning long ago. His obsession didn't end with her death, it simply became his prison. As years pass, the world moves on, but stories like hers remind us of the thin line between passion and possession. between care and control, between love and obsession. They remind us that even the most beautiful beginnings can hide the darkest endings. If there's one thing this case teaches, it's that obsession isn't love. It's a warning. And once that line is crossed, there's rarely a way back. Thank you for watching. Remember to stay aware, stay safe, and never ignore the signs when love starts to feel like control. Because sometimes the most dangerous kind of love is the one that refuses to let go.